warm welcome awaited the Montreal Alouettes at Joliette, Quebec, the site of their 1962 training camp. This marked the second straight year the Als had trained out of Montreal. The colorful Quebec town and countryside provided a fine setting for what was to be a profitable camp. The team was housed at the Seminaire de Joliette, the first professional football home of Sandy Stevens, the Minnesota All-American who was to be the Alouette quarterback during 1962. Veterans and rookies began workouts under the watchful eyes of the club's coaching staff, who saw early that Don Clark hadn't lost any of his old-time speed. Stevens was a big attraction at the camp. He had been the hero of the 1962 Rose Bowl game and was Canadian football's most publicized newcomer. The first real test for the Alouette hopefuls came with a red and white exhibition game in Joliette in mid-July. The game proved that, despite the long layoff, Marv Luster hadn't forgotten how to catch a football. And it also proved that Don Clark hadn't forgotten how to run with one. The Alouettes won 2 of 3 preseason exhibition games, including a 53-0 triumph over Winnipeg, and then headed into Toronto for the Big Four opener. An omen of things to come came early in this game, Sandy Stevens passing to George Dixon. On the next play, Don Clark took off on the Als' first long pass and run play of the regular season. Clark heads 42 yards to the Argonaut 10. Then came the Alouettes' first touchdown of 1962. Sandy Stevens passing and George Dixon catching. Marv Luster was headed for another fine season as a two-way player. Here, Luster comes up with an interception of a Tobin Road pass and turns on the speed as the Alouettes continued to dominate the first quarter of their first game. Don Clark breaking through once more on another of his patented ground gainers. Then one of the early season highlights for Alouette fans. Sandy Stevens passes half the length of the football field, Luster on the receiving end for the touchdown. Bobby Lee Thompson was a 1962 newcomer, and the fans were told to watch his speed. Here's a good example. Thompson catches Dick Shadow to prevent an Argonaut touchdown. The first home game of 1962 brought the Ottawa Rough Riders to Montreal. On this play, Don Clark is downed on the Ottawa 3-yard line in what was to be a very rough and controversial football game. That play set up another touchdown by George Dixon. In the second quarter, Clark takes off on what was to be his last touchdown run until late in the season. After some great blocking, he heads down the sidelines and outspeeds the Ottawa defense 85 yards for a touchdown. Clark left the game shortly after with a kidney injury, keeping him sidelined until the second last game of the regular season. So with the great fullback out of action, an extra burden was thrust onto the shoulders of George Dixon. The first visit of the Hamilton Tiger Cats to Montreal gave the fans a chance to see one of Dixon's finest runs of the year, 40 yards for a touchdown. A feature of every Alouette home game is the pre-game and halftime performance by the Montreal Alouette Band and the Larkettes. They've been a favorite of Montreal fans for the past 9 seasons. With their red and white uniforms, the Larkettes are a pleasant addition to both day and night contests in Montreal, with new routines and plenty of surprises coming with each performance. Miss Alouette is selected from the ranks of the Larkettes. In 1962, Mr. C.B. Powell of the Alouette Board of Directors presented the winning bouquet to Miss Edith Danchuk. Here's the Alouettes in Hamilton for a Labor Day contest, and Sandy Stevens and George Dixon combine early in the game. Another Stevens pass, this one good to Jack Espenship. Then it's Stevens keeping the ball and crashing over for the touchdown. The Alouettes kick off to start the second half, and one of the year's great runbacks coming up. Tommy Grant receives the ball in his own 5-yard line, finds an opening, and takes off. Watch Garney Henley, number 26 for the Tie Cats, outspeed the Alouette defenders to block in the final stages of a 105-yard touchdown run by Tommy Grant. But the Alouettes come right back, the firm of Stevens and Dixon into business for a 55-yard gain down the sidelines. Watch Brooks and Espenship head out to block the Tiger Cats and end up blocking each other. Bobby Lee Thompson gets a chance on offense and scores a touchdown from the Tiger Cat 4-yard line. Last play of the Labor Day game, score tied 25-25. Cam Fraser kicking to Ron Howell in the Tiger Cat end zone. Howell returns the kick, but the Ticats are called for no yards, and the Alouettes get another chance. Fraser kicking again from 35 yards out, and once again, Howell is there to return the kick. This time, the Alouettes don't get that other chance. Score tied, game over. Back in Montreal, the BC Lions led the Alouettes 12-0 in the last quarter, but a 15-yard touchdown run by George Dixon cuts the lead to 5 points. The next time the Alouettes get the ball, Joe Francis passes to Tom Cloutier, and it's a 34-yard gain to the Lions' 27. On a sweep around right end, George Dixon picks up another 14 yards. And then Dixon gives the Alouettes the lead with this run, his second touchdown of the evening. Dixon then caps a great night with this 22-yard run, 3 touchdowns in 5 minutes. Jet-style transportation has helped bring the interlocking schedule to Canadian football. Here, the Alouettes make their first trip into Western Canada. Club owner Ted Workman and head coach and general manager Perry Moss led the contingent, with players and officials alike relaxing in various ways. Conversation was the main source of enjoyment, but some preferred to go all the way when taking it easy. Dick Schnell and Dick Delatry, along with another relaxed passenger, Bobby Lee Thompson. Food was essential, of course, on the plane trip, but the main thing on everyone's mind was the football game just ahead. On this trip west, first stop was Regina. The Alouettes made an early appearance on the gridiron in Regina's Taylor Field to work out the travel kinks and get accustomed to those crisp Western Canadian late summer evenings. Coach Moss conferring with referee-in-chief Paul Dojak and quarterback Joe Francis testing his throwing arm. The Alouettes were big drawing cards throughout Western Canada. The 1962 interlocking schedule took them to Regina and Calgary on this trip, plus a later visit to Winnipeg. George Dixon and Bobby Jack Oliver, 2 players Western fans were eager to see in action. The Alouettes received a taste of that cold prairie wind in Regina, but Marv Luster had the right answer. Catch a pass and then run to keep warm. George Dixon showed Western fans what Eastern fans knew all along, that he's one of the great runners in Canadian football. Sandy Stevens did the honors for the Alouettes in the touchdown department against the Riders. This play came behind some fine blocking around right end. Sandy did some throwing, too, in the Regina game, and in this case, Bobby Lee Thompson did the catching. Saskatchewan All-Star Bill Burrell tried to do some stealing, but the referees and the Alouettes had the last word. Further west, the largest crowd of the Calgary football season turned out to see the Alouettes in McMahon Stadium. George Dixon didn't take too long to show the folks in the foothill city what he could do. Taking the opening kickoff, Dixon heads off on a 43-yard run back. Barry Moss's dual quarterback system was in operation in the Calgary game. Here, Joe Francis passes complete to Marv Luster. The Alouette drive ends with a touchdown by George Dixon from the 2-yard line. Here's a fine play by the Alouette defensive unit. After a Calgary fumble, Ted Ellsby dives headfirst into the pile and recovers the loose ball for Montreal. Joe Francis on the passing beam again. This one's good for a 57-yard gain. Only a fine defensive play by Harvey Wiley prevents Marv Luster from going all the way. Meet Dick Schnell, who was to emerge as a hero when the Alouettes met their traditional rivals from Edmonton back in Montreal. On this play, Schnell comes up with an interception of an Eskimo pass, and it led to the first Alouette touchdown of the day. Schnell in a starring role again. This time he breaks through to block an Edmonton punt, and after the Alouettes recover the loose ball, another major score is coming up. Sandy Stevens does the honors this time. Sandy appears to be stopped, but he gives it just that little extra and goes over from the 2-yard line. Late in the game, a fine defensive play by Ed Nicholas sets up what proved to be the game-tying field goal. Nicholas intercepts a Don Getty pass and rolls into Eskimo territory. The Thanksgiving Day game with Ottawa produced plenty of thrills for Montreal fans, and George Dixon, of course, was front and center. This time, it's a 46-yard touchdown run. But even Dixon took a back seat in this game when it came to long touchdowns. Bobby Lee Thompson catches an Ottawa kickoff on the Alouette 4-yard line. Starting up the middle, Thompson suddenly veers left and then takes off. A couple of Ottawa defenders give chase, but it's no contest. It's a 106-yard touchdown and a new Big Four record for Bobby Lee Thompson. The thrills weren't over yet. Here's one on a 41-yard play. Stevens to Luster. Touchdown, Montreal. Here's Larry Hickman, who proved to be an important addition to the Alouette ground attack in 1962, and Marv Luster, who plays fine football every game, but especially in the CNE Stadium in Toronto. The Alouettes drew the largest crowd of the year on their second visit to the Queen City, and the big throng got a good look at the Stevens to Luster combination. Before this game was over, the Argonauts had seen too much. 3 in a row, and it's touchdown, Alouettes. Another Montreal major, Stevens to Jim Reynolds, who just takes it easy as he walks over the goal line. Montreal moves along the ground as well. Larry Hickman powers his way 39 yards on this one to the Argonaut 2. Sometimes it's difficult to score from 2 yards out, but sometimes it's easy. A few minutes later, Sandy comes up with a dandy. This time from the Toronto 39. Watch him high step away from Jim Andriotti as he heads all the way to pay dirt. Good downfield blocking paves the way for still another Montreal touchdown, 28 yards by Larry Hickman. The Alouettes were leading 43-7 when Billy Waite comes up with a juggling interception of a Tobin Road pass and takes off down the sidelines. Waite hot-puts 108 yards for the 7th and final Alouette touchdown. Who says nothing ever happens on a Sunday in Toronto? Here's Bobby Jack Oliver, team captain and the second high scorer of the 1962 Montreal Alouettes. George Dixon scored 15 touchdowns on his way to the Big Four scoring championship and a new Eastern rushing record. And here's the longest touchdown of them all. Against the Riders in Ottawa, Dixon takes off on a 75-yard touchdown run. The Rough Riders on offense in the same game, and a lot of work goes to waste on this play. It's the old razzle-dazzle, but when it's all over, they haven't gained a thing. Now the famous goal post deflection. Sandy Stevens passing. The ball deflects off the posts into the arms of Marv Luster. The Alouettes have scored their strangest touchdown of 1962. Score tied in the fourth quarter. Mo Racine kicks a 42-yard field goal, giving the Riders a 3-point lead. But the season's largest crowd in Ottawa was to see a better one. Bobby Jack Oliver kicks from the Rider 48 with less than 3 minutes to play. It's good, and the Alouettes have a 21-21 tie. The last regular season visit of the Hamilton Tiger Cats to Montreal featured this 3-play touchdown march. The first, a pass to Tom Cloutier. Then Marvin Luster is target number 2. Luster's catch makes it a 19-yard gain. Then third time lucky. Stevens connects with George Dixon, and a 48-yard pass and run play gives the Alouettes a spectacular touchdown, 93 yards in 3 plays. Heading upfield or downfield, it's all the same to Stevens and Dixon. A sidearm Stevens flip, a good Dixon catch, and some unexpected blocking help. It all adds up to a 67-yard Alouette touchdown. That play was just one of the many reasons George Dixon was voted the Jeff Russell Trophy as the Big Four's outstanding performer in 1962. Dixon won the scoring race with 90 points and established a new Eastern Conference rushing record. His brilliant season was climaxed during Grey Cup week in Toronto when George Dixon was named Canada's outstanding football player for 1962. Here's Jim Reynolds, the former Ottawa Rough Rider who was destined to haunt his former teammates during the Big Four semifinal at Ottawa on November the 10th. When that ball game was over, the players dubbed it the Mud Bowl. The field was wet and the ball was slippery. On the opening kickoff, Ottawa fumbles and the Alouettes recover. Later in the first quarter, Bobby Jack Oliver blocks an Ottawa punt. Dick Schnell recovers for the Alouettes, who then have the ball on the Rough Rider 10-yard line. From there, Oliver tries a field goal. It connects and gives Montreal a 3-0 lead. Fumbles were the order of the day. Here, Chandler bobbles a Jackson pitch-out, and Ted Ellsby recovers. Here's the first Montreal touchdown, Larry Hickman going over. Oliver adds another point on the convert, and the Alouettes lead 10-0. Second quarter, and Mo Racine with a field goal for the Riders, 10-3 Montreal. As the field becomes greasier, Dave Thielen of the Riders proves to be at home in the heavy going. He breaks up the middle for a 51-yard run, and Ottawa's first touchdown. The convert ties the game 10-all. Here's a slow-motion shot of Larry Hickman. The big fullback gets good blocking and sloshes his way 38 yards. Almost, but not quite, going all the way. Late in the first half, Conroy's kick goes into the end zone, and Miko Poliziani concedes Ottawa a single point. The Riders lead 11-10 as the teams slide to the end of the first half. The Riders headed to a quick laundry service at halftime, and then a quick touchdown. Jackson to Thielen. Now a big play. The snap for the convert is fumbled. The Riders fail to add the extra point. They now lead 17-10. Jim Reynolds played standout defensive football in this semifinal. Here he breaks through to nail Russ Jackson for a big loss. In the fourth quarter, Vic Chapman kicking for the Alouettes. Whit Tucker concedes the single point, and the Riders now lead 17-12. Then the Alouettes start the drive that was to lead them to the Eastern Finals. Don Clark carries for 7 yards. Larry Hickman makes 2. It's third down, inches to go. Sandy Stevens keeps the ball and moves 7 big yards to the Rough Rider 12. Don Clark carries and picks up 2 more. And then it's Clark again. This time he turns the right end on a 10-yard touchdown dash, and the game is tied. Bobby Jack Oliver had kicked 34 converts during the regular season, but none as important as this one. It's good, and the Alouettes have the lead 18-17. Montreal staves off a final Ottawa drive, and the game ends with Vic Chapman kicking out of bounds to the Rough Rider 45. Montreal wins 18-17 to move into the Big Four final against Hamilton. A happy Alouette team and Coach Perry Moss on the receiving end of the handshakes. The opening game of the 2-game total point Big Four final was played in Montreal. Hamilton was holding an early lead when George Dixon broke away for this 15-yard gain around left end. On the very next play, Sandy Stevens passes complete to Marv Luster. Slipping between two defenders, Luster is off and running for the goal line. The all-star end goes the distance unmolested, a 69-yard scoring play. Here's a fine defensive move by Bobby Lee Thompson. Thompson intercepts a Hamilton pass deep in Montreal territory and takes off on a 22-yard run back. Second quarter, and Don Clark in the spotlight. Getting a key block from the right side of the Alouette line, Clark is off down the sideline. Only a great recovery by speedy Garney Henley stops him. The play is good for 67 yards. Here's another look at the speed of George Dixon as he takes a Stevens pass. Another long pass coming up. Stevens to Mikko Poliziani. It's a 38-yard gain into Hamilton territory. Staying in the air, Stevens hits Thompson this time, and it's a 13-yard advance for Montreal. Then from the 28, a Bobby Jack Oliver field goal is good. A wild Hamilton lateral leads to a real scramble, and Dave Groves recovers the loose ball for Montreal. George Dixon knifing through left tackle for a gain of 6, the stop made by Zeno Karts. Then it's Stevens. Sandy goes around right end and ends up with a gain of 8 yards. Now George Dixon's final touchdown for his hometown fans. Carrying over on third down over left tackle and into the Hamilton end zone. And on that one, Oliver clicks for the convert. The Alouettes were 11 points down heading into Hamilton for the final Big Four playoff game. On the kickoff, following an early Tiger Cat touchdown, Thompson hands off to Clark on a reverse, and the speedy Montreal star returns the ball all the way to midfield. Hamilton's Jamie Caleb throws into the Alouette end zone on this play. Garney Henley is there with a great jumping catch and a touchdown for the Tiger Cats, a big play. Larry Hickman breaking through for a gain for the Alouettes. In the second quarter, and a fine Alouette play coming up. Sandy Stevens gets the toss away, and Mikko Poliziani comes up with a great tumbling catch in the end zone for the touchdown. Still passing, Stevens hits Poliziani again, and this time it's a 23-yard gain. Sam Fernandez makes sure that Dixon doesn't go too far on this one. Dixon again, moving to the 10-yard line. Then it's number 28 once more, this time out of bounds at the 1. From there, Larry Hickman goes over for the touchdown. The first half ends with Hamilton still 11 points ahead. Start of the second half and the start of a controversy. Hamilton with just 6 men in the line of scrimmage. Zuger passing to Patterson. On the next play, still a 6-man line for the Ticats, and Dave Vitti catches a pass in the end zone. But the Alouettes continue to give it all they have right to the final gun. Here's Marv Luster scrambling over the Hamilton goal line for the team's final touchdown of 1962. Now the Alouette fans, players, and coaches are looking forward to the 1963 season. Once again, fine football will be the order of the day when Dixon, Clark, Stevens, Oliver, Luster, and the rest of the Alouettes head into another exciting Canadian football campaign. With newcomers Dave Hoffman and Chuck Walton of Iowa State and Roy Wilkins from the NFL added to the lineup, the Montreal Alouettes will once again be one of the most colorful and crowd-pleasing teams in Canadian football.